Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 273. I am your host Nathan Springer. Joined by my beautiful co-host Leora Springer. Say hi, Lily. Yes. And tonight we're talking Caribbean Airlines. We're talking Caribbean Airlines because Caribbean Airlines flights had a mass delay today. It started off as a bit of a mystery, you know. There were some cockpit challenges apparently, and then eventually, as the day went on, the answers came. The answers as to why came. Ronnie says, if I only plan to stay 4 days and you make me stay 3 days more, I have to stay on the street. Yeah, maybe, but does that mean you're liable? I mean, and you know, this has some interesting points in it because Caribbean Airlines, the pilots, are essential workers. They are essential workers. So just like the police, who are also essential workers, they are not allowed to protest. They are not allowed to do industrial action like that. They are not allowed to do industrial action like that. But I don't know how many of you recall the day of total policing. When was that? A couple years ago. About how many years? I can't even remember how many years. There was a day a couple years ago of total policing where the police basically shut down the country because they were unhappy with their negotiation pace. And now the pilots are basically doing the same thing to some extent, where technically they cannot protest, but they cannot do industrial action. But really and truly, how do you stop someone from calling in sick? It's not something exactly very straightforward to do. Just say, hey, you can't be sick. I mean, I'm not sure how easy that is to do, but we're going to talk about all of that. So welcome. Hit that like button if you are watching over on Instagram. Double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you hit the like button over there. And you can like and like again and then like again and keep liking throughout the live. We'll be here for about an hour probably. So, you know, you have an hour to just keep tapping that screen. I wonder how many likes you could send in an hour. And even if you are viewing this on YouTube, on the repeat, whenever, hit that like button, share it, tell people, hey, this is some good stuff. Be sure to subscribe over there, Nathan Springer on YouTube. You can catch all of the Mindful Lives repeated there. So, you know, you missed some topic, you want to catch up on something that was gone a bit before, you could go over there and take it in on the repeat. So, yeah, let's dive in. All right, Caribbean Airlines flights, CAL flights disrupted by resource constraints. This was the original form of the reasoning behind the disruption. When the story first broke, this was the original form. Caribbean Airlines delayed and cancelled many of its international and domestic services on Sunday because of resource constraints. A post on Caribbean Airlines Facebook page said, all affected customers are being advised and will be re-accommodated on the first available service. But then that was swiftly adjusted. Sick pilots forced Caribbean Airlines to cancel flights. Passengers upset. Scenes of frustration and chaos erupted at the Piarco International Airport and the A.N.R. Robinson International Airport early yesterday after dozens of Caribbean Airlines flights were delayed or cancelled. The situation stemmed from what the airline called cockpit crew constraints after pilots called in sick just 3 hours before their flights were due to leave. However, the Pilots Association denied there was any sick-out action. Like, I know Caribbean Airlines, and we're going to get to that. I know they took it to court and got the injunction and all of that. But here's my problem. I remember in the pandemic, during the pandemic, when essential workers were allowed to work and the government stopped everyone else's work. These essential workers collected their salary still. There weren't many complaints from the essential workers over the privileges they were granted of being essential workers. I remember seeing pictures all over people's profiles. You know, the surround a picture surround a frame surrounding your profile picture. I don't know how many of you know those kind of things. On Facebook, you get a little frame that surrounds your profile picture, and I can't stay home, I'm an essential worker. You know those things. I don't know how many of you all saw it during the pandemic. I saw lots of it from the essential workers. And I had a problem with it back then because all work to everyone is essential, really and truly. I don't go to work just off of the vibes. I go to work because I kind of have to. You know, I have people that need to be taken care of, including myself. Ronnie, well, I'd have to share some. I'd have to share some with you. Many people had them, and that was the benefit of the essential workers. Maybe they had an epidemic of some sort within the lunchroom of the cockpit. Some kind of epidemic went there, and in that case, then if you get the benefits, then this is kind of the trade-off you get with that essential work business. And I understand it could seem kind of unfair that, okay, other workers get to do their industrial action and we cannot. Well, that's the contract you signed. You signed a contract saying you are an essential worker and therefore cannot do industrial action. And then turn around now and do industrial action. To me, like, Ronnie, you were asking if the airline is supposed to foot the bill for people who had to stay over in their hotels. I think the Pilots Association could be sued for that. Well, obviously, probably not, but I mean, theoretically, if you're looking for someone to blame, it would be the people who accepted a contract with conditions and then broke the conditions of those contracts. It's not Caribbean Airlines who broke that contract. It was the pilots. And their action was strategic. For the Pilots Association to deny that a sick out action was done seems kind of ridiculous to me, really and truly. That seems a lot like a lie, because for all of the pilots to conveniently find out that they are ill just 3 hours before the flight. Come on now. It reminds me, I remember sometime there was a negotiation going on with some concrete truck drivers, I think in Trinidad and Tobago self. And the concrete truck drivers were demanding certain raises, etc., etc., etc. So they filled up all of their trucks with concrete. And then when the trucks were filled, they downed their keys and said, we aren't going anywhere. So you know what that does to the company? All of the concrete is there sitting in the truck. It has to come out. So, you know, it was a convenient bit of sickness. In all, over 30 flights were cancelled, with passengers traveling between Tobago to Trinidad forced to use the inter-island ferry to make their way back home. You know, and that's the reality of those things, eh? But you ask the question, is it worth it? And I mean, I wish I could have had a pilot who could have said their side here. But I understand where they're coming from. I mean, if you want a raise, you want a raise. You need your money. You want your money right now. But thousands of people would have suffered, and some of them may have suffered far worse than a little, no, not a little, let me make it sound insignificant. Many would have suffered more than a decreased salary that the pilots get. There are emergencies that people would have had to take care of. If you're stuck in a place and you have to go home for some emergency. But what happens when people decide never to use Caribbean Airlines again? Well, the pilots would go on to another job. And Caribbean Airlines would fold up. Or we would have to bail them out again. Hundreds of passengers who were scheduled to travel to international destinations, including Miami, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, New York, and Canada, regional Guyana, Barbados, and St. Lucia, were left visibly angry and perplexed. And you see, just as you're saying there, Ronnie, that's the reason they are essential workers and are not supposed to be able to take these industrial actions, because people have to depend on you to keep other systems running. How many of the trips to Miami, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, New York, Guyana, how many of them would have been business trips? I know some people in different areas of business and employment. Some people go to Guyana for work. If I am some specialist in something, let's say an MRI machine in Guyana's hospital was down, and I am the MRI specialist technician, and I have to go to Guyana to service this machine on an emergency. You know, it's a healthcare situation. And because your salary negotiation is stuck, healthcare in Guyana has to suffer. This is the reality. Carl's Reservation Service Center was severely crippled, and it also issued a statement. By yesterday evening, Carl said the center was actively working to contact all affected customers. An airline source told Guardian Media that pilots had become disgruntled after they were reportedly told by management that they are to face a 20% cut in their salaries. That information was not confirmed by Caribbean Airlines, but if that's the case, that's kind of understandable. If you're being honest. If you're being honest, a 20% cut in your salary is a serious thing to take. That's not something that many people would take easily. I don't know if it's true, because Caribbean Airlines has not confirmed this or denied it, I think. But if it's true, 20% cut. Not easy to. Even if you're making $30,000, you're a senior pilot or something, however the pilot's salary goes, you're making $30,000. 20% of $30,000 is $6,000. That's from $30,000 to $24,000. Crickson, she says, I'm police officer on contract and I'm facing at least 20% on the next contract. Yikes. Especially when you budget your life to live off your salary. Exactly, Bali. And I sacrifice life limit to protect people and democracy. Where are which police on contract? In the first case, which police are on contract? And secondly, which ones are getting that 20% cut? I'd like to get to the bottom of that story. And yes, as Bali was saying there, even if you have a $30,000 salary, you may have a vehicle loan and you had a $30,000 salary, so you know you weren't getting the Aqua. You got something a little better than that. You have yours, you have a his and hers vehicle loan that comes up to, you know, a significant sum. You could have a mortgage, and some of those mortgages could be 10 plus. In all, your salary could easily be minus $20,000 in necessary payments per month, even on a $30,000 salary. And okay, you could say, well, live within your means, but bear in mind you had your means of $30,000. You were living within your means. But if you had $30,000, you had a $20,000 essential payments have to come out of your salary every month. So, but you had a $10,000 to play with, so it's not that bad. But now that $10,000 to play with goes down to $4,000 to play with. That gets kind of scary. And you know, I was being reminded of some stories that were coming out from Caribbean Airlines a couple of years now, where, you know, there seems to be some complication in all of these issues. I remember a story. When was this story from? When was this from? JSC tells Cal to end sweetheart deal with retired pilots. This was since 2017. A joint select committee on state enterprises telling Caribbean Airlines it must end its sweetheart deal with retired pilots immediately. Chairman David Small. Well, what was being said there is that reportedly, allegedly, what Caribbean Airlines was doing, I don't know how much of it they still do, was retired pilots would be brought back on contract and given their same senior position and a hefty sum of money instead of bringing up the junior pilots. And if that's the case, where, you're top heavy, because remember, a lot of government companies run like that. Remember when they were talking about WASA recently, they were showing WASA, I can't remember the exact number, but WASA's ratio of senior management to junior workers was ridiculous. I think it's my end sticking a bit there, Ronnie, because I saw a little message there, but it's supposed to be running smoothly. No, I lost that connection. What is going on? It's supposed to still be working. I see you. Instagram is pulling well, I think. So I'm not sure if it's this device. But yeah. If it is that they are top heavy and then they're looking to shave off extra load. They're looking to shave off the extra load, and how they're looking to shave off the extra load is cutting the pilot's salary. Really? Are you sure? Are you sure? Because the pilots are the stars of this particular industry when you think about it. It's like, when I look at West Indies cricket, and regularly you see the bacchanal in West Indies cricket, and the West Indies cricket board, a bunch of, I go to say old fogies, but I do not want to be insulting and ageist, but a bunch of older gentlemen on the West Indies cricket board always causing bacchanal between the board, the selectors, and they're causing bacchanal with the players, while the players are the people who bring in the money. The players are the people who bring in the money. So, really and truly, if anybody needs to get a pay cut, it has to be the people who don't bring in the money. Like, if you think about it really and truly, if you fired every one of the board members and senior management of Caribbean Airlines and gave over the plane to the pilots and repair staff, you would have a lot of logistical problems. But planes could still fly and reach a destination. While if you fired all of the pilots and maintenance staff and kept all of that senior management and the board, no plane flies. The plane stays on the ground. So there is a level of importance there, and if there is a salary cut, are the engineers, technicians, and ground satisfied with their wages and benefits? I highly doubt it. Is anyone on earth, well, probably not on earth, but there aren't many people who are satisfied with their wages and benefits, if we're being honest. If we're being honest, there aren't many people very satisfied with the position their wages are at. But to me, it's an industry standard thing. Like, I regularly talk about this. How do you choose wages for public servants? And I guess with Caribbean Airlines, you could get some of these problems, because if Caribbean Airlines is a publicly owned company, and if the company is losing money, it's not profitable, then what's the salary that someone deserves inside of the company? I regularly talk about this. When people talk about deserve and how much money you deserve and you're supposed to get, how do you work that out? Because, as I regularly say, the free market has an obvious solution for this. My favorite guys to call on in the free market, the doubles vendor. You don't have to question how much he deserves to make. The doubles vendor deserves to make how much money he can get by people buying his product. if he makes good doubles and many people buy his doubles and he could sell it for $6 for one, how much money he makes is dependent on that. How profitable his business is how much money he makes. And if he hires a worker, so you have your doubles and it becomes, it starts to pick up. You hire a worker, you have your doubles fryer on spot. How much money the doubles fryer makes will be dependent on how much money is added by their service to the business. Now, when you transpose this to a government business, like Caribbean Airlines, where I don't think Caribbean Airlines has been really profitable for a long time now. If it's the case that the airline is not profitable, how do you adjudicate the deserved pay of anyone inside there? To me, though, the people whose pay might be the easiest to figure out in something like that might actually be the pilots, because there may be an industry standard for this, and the industry standard could be extrapolated to these pilots. That may not be a hard thing. To me, the people that need a salary cut might be any senior management. If you're senior management in a busting company, you shouldn't be paid plenty anyhow, really and truly. Let's see. Carl told the affected customers, don't go to the airport. Don't turn up to the airport. There is no solution for you at the airport. Stay home or stay in your hotel. But Carl has been granted an injunction. Caribbean Airlines says it applied for and was granted an injunction by the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago on Monday, which restricts the Trinidad and Tobago Airline Pilots Association and its members from taking industrial action within the meaning of the Industrial Relations Act of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 8801, including calling in sick en masse. You see, this is a strange thing to me. How do you get an injunction against an association for industrial action that they are saying they never took? According to the association, what the association is basically selling us, the story they're selling us is that all of these pilots legitimately got sick. They got sick. And can you legally compel a sick person to come to work? I mean, okay, within the definitions of the Industrial Relations Act, you have calling in sick en masse is a problem. You can't call in sick en masse, it's seen as industrial action. Okay. En masse might be technical to define. After day of total policing, didn't police get a raise? I believe they got the same raise, around the same raise that they were being offered anyway. So I don't know how much the day of total policing added to their negotiations in terms of working it to their benefit. To me, here's how I see these things, and why I sometimes have problems with unions. Here's how I see these things. If you, as the pilots, have the ability to call out sick and take industrial action and do things like that, I think your employer should be able to fire you en masse. If you could not show up to work en masse, I should be able to fire you en masse. So that day of total policing, all of the police involved in sending out those orders should have been fired. Fire them and rehire. Simple like that. And you'd have seen all of that nonsense cut. But actually you can't fire them because the same union that does the industrial action makes it impossible to fire them too. So you're trapped in the ridiculous situation. Them's the breaks. Use your leverage for bargaining. Union strong. Kinda hard to do with pilots though. Yeah, it's harder to do with pilots. But it may not be that hard to do. If you have pilots wanting promotion, because union busting, there are ways to do this, you know. they put up laws to stop union busting because there are many ways to break up people who work together. Someone was saying, look how I saw someone reading, look how all the pilots work together to get that done. Congratulate. If people were allowed to do different things, that could have been broken up. You go to one group of junior pilots that are just on the brink of being promoted to a level higher, and you offer them the level higher in exchange for coming to work and firing the people at that level. Because remember, the allegation is that there are some retired pilots rehired on contracts. So if you let go all of them and allow some of those juniors to get a pay increase. Yes, positive radiation. I do. When you fire in mass, your operations will get hampered. Sometimes, not all the time, because Elon Musk took over Twitter, and within the first 2 weeks or so, he fired something like 70% of the staff. I believe it went up to 90 in the end. And it actually increased the efficacy of the app. So, firing in mass is not always a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing, especially if they're problematic workers. Twitter is not an airline. Oh, but don't go down that road now, positive radiation. You asked me if I had a business, and you were using that in general. You were saying in general, firing in mass damages your product. But I'm saying there are many instances where firing in mass didn't damage them. It's not impossible. And I didn't speak about firing all of the pilots. I was talking about a strategic thing. But firing in mass actually works in many cases, especially government institutions. Listen, if I could go over to the THE and on my will fire in mass, Tobago gonna be running efficiently in probably 3 months. But Tobagonians won't like it. Because that's the issue. The issue isn't the efficiency of the company. The issue is the workers.
Okay, good night. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Just you was done reading this story.
Wait, why? No. Just now, White Leather says, don't try that. Twitter has been an issue since Musk has taken the helm. White Leather, are you on Twitter? Because that's not true. Provably not true. What has been the show? What has been the show? The app has increased profitability, has increased efficiency, has increased user base. So wait, you're not? So what are you talking about, White Leather? Don't tell me you're reading CNN articles and MSNBC out there. Please don't tell me you're reading mass media out there and using that as your gauge. Please don't tell me that. Because I could tell you, I am a regular Twitter user. Ask Trini Hotep. He is also a regular Twitter user. And it hasn't been an issue. Really and truly. It has not. Yeah. Yes, Ronnie. What's going on?
Okay. Hi. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
I was saying, and I kept saying, is one, I would prefer for Carl to be privatized. Like, for the longest while I've said that. Yes, it will increase the prices of every single flight, and we may no longer have that lovely subsidy in that Tobago, but heck, whatever. If they need more money to pay the pilots, who had to pay it? The customers, right? Two, I think having other airlines come in and have that competition there, it will be better. Because I don't understand how come Carl is the only one flying through most of the Caribbean islands, right? A ticket to go to Barbados, a ticket to go to Jamaica, sometimes it's been more expensive, or even the same price to go to London, to go to Miami. And it's like, because Carl is the only one really flying these places, right?
But
yes, you will get your occasional BA flight going to like St. Lucia and Barbados or whatever. But like competition should really help, and it would also help the pilots, because if you don't like the pay over at Carl, you could go by the next airline and see if they will pay you more. But like to hold the passengers at ransom is so unfair.
It is.
Like, my people have jobs. My cousin came to Tobago. She planned to spend 1 week, right? She works. She works with an airline in the US. She's a trainer, and she's yet to go back home.
So training is held up in that airline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably not. She probably just gonna get a pay cut because they don't play. They're gonna probably pull in somebody else to do her training, and she gonna end up making less money. You understand? Due to no fault of her own, because she had her flights planned out. So it's Tobago, Trinidad, and then Trinidad, Miami. Orlando. So basically, you missing out, and you don't even know when you're gonna leave. That's the messed up part about it.
Yep, but you see, here's the thing with the competition and the prices. One, the prices of the inter-island flights is not Caribbean Airlines' fault. What's this guy? Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister, the guy with the funny mustache. He has been for quite some time now lobbying CARICOM to decrease their taxes, because it's the taxes from the islands. The countries are doing this. They are doing this. These leaders that we elect in the Caribbean, these Marxists, these local Marxists and communists and socialist leading people that have obsessions with taxes and running everything micromanaging, they are causing these things. They are the one charging the taxes. And the Antigua Gaston Brown, he has been for quite some time trying to lobby CARICOM to decrease these things. His point, and it's a very sensible point, is that instead of trying to make the money from taxes on the flight ticket, how about you allow the people to come into the island and spend the same money on the island? They're going to spend the money anyhow. Instead of trying to take it at the airline counter, let them spend the money on the island. That's one. Two, lots of the Caribbean flights aren't profitable. That's the issue with competition and private airlines. That's why Caribbean Airlines, I believe Air Jamaica was so also. A lot of these, Liat ran, I believe, at a bus too. A lot of these inter-island airlines, they run on a bus. They don't make money on some of those flights. And it's nearly a public service to keep the flights running. For example, you're saying about the competition there. I believe I saw Air Canada recently. Air Canada cancels Trinidad flights amid challenges. This is just August the 15th. Not that long ago. Let's just take a brief read here. Ongoing industrial relation challenges within Air Canada have resulted in the airline cancelling its much anticipated direct flights from Toronto, Canada to Trinidad. It was just in June Tourism Trinidad Limited announced the resumption of Air Canada's service to Trinidad from November 1st. The airline was supposed to start with 3 weekly flights, but that has been cancelled. So you see, it's not as easy as just getting the competition there. It's attracting the competition. If it's a private company, it has to be profitable before a private company does it. Now, you're saying that if the airline is privatized, what would happen to, for example, the subsidized flights between Trinidad and Tobago? But here's the thing. The government is paying the money anyway, you know. The government could subsidize a private flight too. It's the same money. Now, the catch to that is the government would be forking over hefty sums to a private company. But they can still subsidize travel in a private company.
But just now, wait. So we're running at a loss yet again. Everything in this country is running at a loss. I'm not surprised. And people want pay raise, and people are justifying a stick out when you are going to cost yourself customers. Because a lot of people will, more than likely, especially the international ones, are going to say, you know what, I'll just take JetBlue. You know what, I'll just take American Airlines. I'll just take British Airways. I will stay away from Carl.
All right, reading here. Errol Fabian 83, is that the Errol? Uncle Errol, is that you, sir? It says that Caribbean Airlines belongs to the people. We are the shareholders. Decisions should be made from that perspective. Here's my problem with that, and my problem with nearly all statements and ideas like that. It sounds beautiful in theory. That's the idea of socialism. That's the idea of communism. We all have it. It's the people's property. But the people can't all make the decision. 1.4 million of us can't go into the boardroom at Caribbean Airlines and say what to do. So here's what happens when the people own something. When the people own something, the political leadership of the people are the management for it. So what effectively happens is people ownership turns to personal ownership. So when you say we the people own it, it's the people in politics owns it. And the more you give to them, the more they get. So Roly-Poly was saying after that, who does it benefit for CAL to be privatized? Us, the users, or government saving, allowing more money, Ninja? Government doesn't make money. If government saves money, we don't have to give them more money. You see, a lot of us don't understand this working. We think that when government owns something, it automatically is better, No. They run it inefficiently, raising the cost all around for it. That's what happens, usually. Let me give you an example. If you had to pay taxes, I don't know how many of you built a house. How many of you built a house recently? It's even a small house. If you had to pay taxes and then let the government build a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house for you, that might cost you 3 times, 4 times, 10 times the price than if you were to go on the private market and hire people to build it for you. Facts. They are manufacturing madness, all with the intention of getting the masses to agree privatize, Roly-Poly says. And who will then own the 1%? But who owns it now, Roly-Poly? Do you own it? You feel the ownership of Caribbean Airlines? Do you feel that ownership? So the parent with the autistic child over the weekend here, who went into the airlines and felt like they were insulted, the airline didn't have training, the staff wasn't trained, the staff ragged them up. Did they feel like they own the airline? Do you feel like you own Caribbean Airlines as it is? You see, here's the problem when government owns something versus the hated 1%. I prefer the 1% own it than the government because the 1% responds to customer complaints. If the customers say, we will not shop because of X problem, the 1% has to change because they have to depend on your shopping money to give them their pay. But the government doesn't need your shopping money. You see, if our company is busting as a government, all right, as a government, we don't have enough money to keep this company running. I don't care if the customers like the service. That's not going to matter to me because you know what I'm going to do? A new tax on the books. How about we have to see about this property tax a little better now? And they tell you the reason they're doing the property tax is because the government doesn't make enough money. And the reason the government doesn't make enough money is because the government spends too much money. And what does it spend that too much money on? These very same things. So then you're complaining about the taxes on your house, the taxes at the car, the taxes to import things. Everything is a tax in this country. This country, business is so hard to run. You're complaining about that, but then very happy to keep the government owning everything. But then here's the problem with me in some of this. It feels to me like there's sometimes a little separation between the working and middle class and some people in some of the lower classes. Because there are people, they are net positive earners from the government and they are net negative payers to the government. And the net positive earners from the government, the people who get more than they give to the government, are always in search of getting more from the government. And who do they get that more from is the people who are net positive givers to the government. So in a country, you have a situation where the government is here in the middle. They make no money. they get from the net positive earners in the country, give to the net negative receivers of the country. And then we're in a country where the net negative receivers of the country always want more. And the government knows if we take more from them, give to them, them will vote for us. And then you keep taking the chain up. I want more. I want more. Not understanding they keep you down. They keep you down in a needy position because you need to always keep getting to stay at that gimme position. Because the moment you rise, the moment you start to make some for yourself, the moment you open a business and start to recognize, wait, it's so much money this government just taking from me, and what they giving me, what do I get from? The moment you do that, then you start to think a little different. So here's what. You don't do that. Don't open a business. Come and work CPEP and URP. Don't worry, we will take care of you. We will subsidize you. We'll give you a free transport on the TTPS, you know. I'm sorry, the PTRC, you know. You will give you a free ticket every now and again for the PTRC. Yeah. Just so you wouldn't buy the vehicle. You know, as we talking on this, just to change gears briefly here, we're talking on this, and it reminds me a bit of the gun issue, the firearm users license issue, where we regularly see the government trying to scare the population. Hey, black people, if we allow firearm licenses in this country, the Indians are going to start to shoot you, you know. Careful. And then listen to this story. Let me see if I could pull this one up. With a government minister, one Mr. not very old. Where do I have that story? Where is it? One minister who recently had to give up his weapon to the TTP. Well, not had to, he gave it up. Young admits to gifting gun to TTPS, denies it was an automatic weapon. Energy Minister Stuart Young says he has never been in possession of an automatic firearm, but he has confirmed that he did donate a legal weapon to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Young added he has always abided by the laws of the country. Young spoke with the Guardian media yesterday, and it was coming from UNC Deputy Political Leader Dr. Rudal Munilal's call to the Police Commissioner to say if there's an ongoing police probe about a minister who appeared to have surrendered an automatic weapon to the TTPS Armory in St. James. Munilal made the call at the opposition Sunday media briefing in Port of Spain. He showed sample pictures of a Springfield St. Edge 556 pistol, which he said is classified as a pistol because of its barrel length, but he said despite this, it was actually an assault weapon. Here's the technicality here. An assault weapon isn't really a category of guns. That's American politics. So it's easy to say it's not an assault weapon. Responding to the questions about the matter, Young said, I have never been in possession of an automatic firearm. He also pointed out the possession and disposal of any legal firearm must be authorized and approved by the Commissioner of Police. I can confirm that I did donate a legal weapon to the TTPS. At all times, I've abided by the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. You see, here's what I feel may have happened here. Oh, Darius, my number one fan. I hope you carry on the pattern. Here's what I surmise may have happened here. Remember the CARICOM meeting? What they said they were going to ban? I don't know how many of you remember this. The CARICOM meeting where they spent the 3 million, somewhere up there, they spent a couple million. And they said after all of that money spent on this great deliberation, they're going to ban something specific. They said they were now going to ban assault weapons. And the thing is, assault weapons, as I said back then and I just reiterated, assault weapons isn't technically a category. So there's some, shifting room. But maybe Mr. Young said, seeing as we as the government decided to ban assault weapons, and many people, particularly in the United States, they call AR-15 rifles assault weapons, and that 5.56 pistol he had was basically an AR-15 build. He decided, let me get out ahead. But what that tells you is while our Prime Minister is watching you and trying to get you frightened, our Prime Minister, and they talk about the 1% and trying to get you frightened about who might have the guns and who is going to shoot you if they get the guns. Stuart Young isn't a black man. And he had basically an AR. Something that could pelt out 5.56 as fast as you could pull the trigger. And they're scaring you. There are people in my life every night that jump in to defend. I don't want a weapon. I do not want to be able to protect myself the same way those government ministers do. Let me ask this question. How many of you believe that AR-like weapon was his only weapon? You all think so?
I mean, if he gave it up, it wasn't the only.
Duh.
He's not going and walking around the place with no protection.
Duh.
Probably gave away the one that was most frightening. They say, you know what, I'll keep the little handgun, the little poo, poo, poo. I'll keep that. But he definitely didn't give away his only gun.
I am pretty sure he did not give away his only gun. And what happened there? Sorry about that, YouTube. Joe, I am aware about their definitions changed with, well, not changed, but the definitions given for assault rifles and pistols. But do you know the weapon that he has? Do you know it? Have you ever seen it? Because it's basically what is seen as an assault weapon. An assault weapon is basically a look. That's the idea of assault weapon. Assault weapon was a category created in the United States for the gun lobby, the anti-gun lobby. The anti-gun lobby created that category of assault weapon. And what they call assault weapon is any scary looking gun, basically. That's basically what they call assault weapon. Any weapon that is used in the military. It has military use. But the thing is, AR-15s aren't used by the US military, yet they are still called assault weapons. So, you know, it's a kind of nebulous definition. It's a semi-automatic gun, and the gun he gave in was a semi-automatic gun. And it had the nice hole, it had a handle there, it could shoot fast rounds, it could shoot rifle rounds. The 5.56 is a rifle round, a supersonic round. You know, let's not get into the nitty-gritty here. It's not a simple pistol. And there's a reason he gave it up. I tell you, I believe, I don't know, I believe that the reason is because of that CARICOM meeting where they said they will now ban assault weapons. And probably a memo went out inside of the cabinet to all of the cabinet members. Hey, psst, psst, psst. Anybody in here? You all know you have your thing? Let me just give it up to the police now. We wouldn't make any scene. We wouldn't make a public thing about it. All of us with our ARs and AR-like weapons, we will give it up to the police. You know? So we make it seem like we're okay with it. But are those legal here at all? Yes, that was a legal firearm he had. He shouldn't need FUL. He has special branch daily security. Ha! And that tells you all you need to know, Wide Leather. When people talk about getting protection and wanting an FUL, these people have police paid to protect them 24/7 basically. And nearly all of them, maybe all of them, have licensed firearms. And that licensed firearm business goes all about, you know, it's not just Mr. Young who had his licensed firearm. I believe they spoke in this article also. Well, at least Mr. Munilal spoke about, let me see if I could pull up the quote there, about one government minister. Generally, he also claimed We're told he returned it as a gift, this is Munilal speaking here, to the TTPS Multi-Operation Purpose Unit, which falls under the special branch. But TTPS cannot accept a gift of a gun. You think this is 100 case of water or corn curls? Honestly, I do find it a bit strange to donate a whole gun to the TTPS. That's
That's a gift. That was so strange to me. Like, how is that a gift?
yes, Valetzi. I remember that very well, and I don't even know what happened to that investigation in the long run. You see, like, for me, the former AG's children who are allegedly using weapons in a base, for me, personally, I don't have a problem with that, you know. Like generally speaking, in a vacuum, without any other factors around it, I don't have a problem with that. But when you bring in the context that we live in a country where our prime minister has the views that he has of firearms, he is, I always say it, he's a boomer Democrat. Our prime minister is a boomer liberal. If you know American politics, he's a boomer Democrat. He is a guy who would have had Obama in his house in a picture and anti-gun and all of that kind of business. When we have a prime minister like that, in that context, then no, then I have a problem with the AG's children having weapons. Because if my children...
Probably the AG isn't a Democrat, probably the AG is a
maybe, but that's the AG. He needs to change his prime minister's view on it then, because his prime minister's view is the one that's being dictated over the country. Yeah, former AG that is. KCR says they are not going to be in office for the rest of their lives. True. I suppose you mean that for the firearms license business. And okay, but how does that negate for anyone else? And then that should mean that you get the license after you leave office, after you lose the special branch protection. What is a person with special branch protection doing with a 5.56 weapon? 5.56 is the rounds that breaks the sound barrier. That's the, I don't know how many of you live in the hotspot areas, but those aren't the rounds that go po po. Those are the rounds that go. You know that kind of, you hear like a cracking sound?
No.
High-powered rifle round. That's the round that was in his weapon. What he needs that for? According to our prime minister's view, what he needs that for? Might he kill black people with it? You know, if you give people who aren't black licenses for firearms, you know. Do you know when they got their firearm? No, I don't. I don't know when they got their firearm, but I do know that Mr. Young is still in power. He would still be under protection of the special branch, and the give up of the weapon was this year. So he had the weapon, and he has been in power. It's 2023. They're here 8 years now. So,
yeah.
What are you trying to say, KCRA? KCRA, throw away your PNM card, eh? Stop it. Throw away your PNM card. It is unbecoming of a big man. It is unbecoming of a big man to defend these wealthier people than you, that spit on you when they get the chance. In action. To defend them at every turn without logic. Okay, KCR, if you say so. But that's the thing. And wait, one more article as I was talking about licenses. It's not just the PNM, because the UNC has somebody in a bit of hot waters with this too. UNC counselor under police radar. Allegations of death threats, harassment, common assault. Listen to this story. Over the last 3 years, 4 police reports have been filed against newly elected UNC councillor Adrian Ali. The allegations are threat against the life of a woman and her male companion, as well as harassment and common assault, in which, listen to this, in which he allegedly drew his licensed weapon at the woman at her workplace in central Trinidad. So it's not just on the PNM side. There are obviously, it seems like once you get into the political frame, and that's how sometimes when you pull out your PNM card or you pull out your UNC card and you run down the road defending them on things that are indefensible, you seem really silly in the long run. Because it seems like once you get into the club, you could get your license. Now, you're saying jail with no bail, wide leather. These incidents happened before the man was still able to go up for election and he won.
But that's what I'm saying, they still voted. They probably don't even, when they went to vote, they probably didn't even know that he was the man they was voting for. They just see the rising sun and they stamp that.
And the thing is, to be fair with them, Ronnie, to be fair with the voters, the problem is the voters may not have even known about these cases. Listen on, because there's some bacchanal even further in this. One of the alleged victims told the Express they had written to a top UNC member last year about the incidents and even sought the services of an attorney, but that no one, including the police, answered their appeals for assistance. You see, sometimes you get tied up. I saw someone say there that the PNM is not a black party, it's an institution for slavery. And okay, I don't think the PNM is a black party. I regularly say that. But I don't think it's an institution for slavery either, really and truly. But, which side you're defending? This side here? That heard about one of their counselors, allegedly, pulling a gun, assaulting, harassing a woman, and did nothing about it? The same party that allegedly has an MP running sex trafficking rings? The MP that has police protection? The MP that when Mr. Devant Mirage, a former UNC member, I think he may in fact still be a UNC member, came to Trinidad to give information about that said MP, the police sent him to a UNC counselor as the justice of the peace to give his evidence? That same UNC? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You can't, when you're so hurry on one or the other, sometimes you could miss that both do certain things. And they get the licensed firearms. These people get the licensed firearms. And our Prime Minister, man with a PhD, that was given an honorary PhD again, I believe, by Howard, so he's double doctor Rowley, is saying that, if you give other people the licensed firearm, they are the real ones to be afraid of. Not the guy with the 5.56 already in your cabinet. Not the guy from Central who is harassing a woman at her workplace allegedly. Not the MP from Central who allegedly is running sex trafficking rings. I wonder if he has a licensed firearm. I ask as if I don't know. So, the kind of defense of one over the other thing, I don't buy it. I really don't. It doesn't add up like that. You're saying, Ronnie?
It's funny. I was saying it's funny.
Yes.
It's just sad, actually. And as you were saying, the both parties, the both major parties in Trinidad and Tobago are both basically Democrats. Like, they run on a very liberal base.
Remember, we were talking about that last week, was it? That or week before? That both of our parties are basically center-left parties. Both parties in Trinidad and Tobago are center-left.
You think center? They're a little more, I wouldn't say center, but
the reason I say center is because we are, by and large, socially conservative. Both parties are, by and large, yes, we know there are specifics, but by and large, both parties are socially conservative. Isn't 5.56 ammunition only allowed for police and military use in Trinidad? I don't know. do like Swiss and let responsible youth run the country? PNM right, UNC left. Zigos, that is not true.
Right? Both of them left.
PNM is not right wing in any way. PNM is the institution that put in place government ownership of every corner of Trinidad and Tobago. How is that right wing? They're the institution that is more against firearm ownership. How is that right wing? Like, they aren't really right wing.
Oh, one thing I wanted to make mention of or say about, somebody said something about something with slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I could find back the comment. Basically, I hate when people bring up slavery in this day and age. Like, nobody is chaining you to your desk at work. If you don't want to work there, leave. Right, go and find another job. Nobody is making you a slave or you ain't going to no plantation where anybody whipping you up. And I find like those comments are so they degrade into actual slaves, right?
I agree.
Those slaves didn't have a choice. Those slaves back in the days in 1800s or whatever, was 1830 something slavery, and so in the 1700s, they didn't have a choice. They had to go. And if they didn't go, they would have died from a beating or just been killed. Plain. So don't talk about slavery and and you're going to your job is like slavery. Like, no. Going to your job, you may not like it. Much people don't like their jobs, but they have to do it because it's their choice. And you don't have to do it. You could leave. Unemployment is an option if you don't mind it. Understand? But the consequences that come with it is solely up to you. You could bear it.
Rani,
nobody not forcing you.
That is to be very honest with you, and this disappoints me because I pay attention to politics a bit. It disappoints me so much when so many people in Trinidad parrot American liberal talking points, because we are fed liberal media, liberal pop culture. Most of our liberal pop culture comes from the United States. We are given liberal pop culture on a platter, and a lot of us just and eat up everything. So there's someone here saying PNM's policies benefit the rich more than the poor. They are right wing. Like, if that's what it means to be right wing. Do you understand what right wing means? It's the difference between individualism and collectivism. Actually, right wing policies benefit the poor more than left wing policies. Left wing policies are Marxist policies. So, a left wing policy, for example, is minimum wage. And minimum wage, in the time that it has been instituted, most of the lower level workers have exited and become unemployed from the job market due to minimum wage. Minimum wage doesn't affect the wealthy. Their salary is inconsequential. Minimum wage cuts off because the minimum wage is actually zero. So, yeah, you all really need to ease up on the US talking points. So, to say that the PNM does policies that benefit the rich more than the poor, so they're right wing, is one, not what right wing is. And that's even using the assumption that PNM does that. Two, I don't think that is necessarily what the PNM does. The PNM is the
collectivist.
They're not. It's not collectivist I'm looking for. They're the modus operandi. They're the status quo. The PNM is the status quo party. The PNM is the oldest political institution. They are looking to maintain the status quo that they created. Maintaining the status quo would obviously lead to those who are currently wealthy continuing in their wealthy area. Now, to say somehow like the UNC doesn't do policies to help the rich, you are very ignorant. Because when the UNC came into power in 2010 to 2015 under the People's Partnership banner, they gave out contracts like water. Somebody blocked that sesh person. The contract for WASA, I still have the picture on one of my old phones. The contract for WASA running pipelines was given to a car company, an auto world. The contract to do the housing was given to a furniture manufacturer. All you had to do was be the right kind of connection and have enough money. So it's not about like one does one to benefit the poor and one does one to benefit the, and like, no, that's not how it works.
I mean, no, I have to disagree there, because look at all of these social programs that we have in Trinidad and Tobago with this collectivism, literally sending your children to school. That is collectivism.
Yes, it is.
People should be paying for their children to go to school, and that's something that benefits the poor more than the rich. Because
Agreed.
most rich people will send their children to a private school if need be.
Anyway, wait. In Trinidad and Tobago, bear in mind, most rich people have private lessons and private tutors. I always looked at that. I did private tutoring for most of my adult life. I know personally there are wealthy people that would spend thousands of dollars in 1 month. I remember a particular person who had some wealth, and their parent would spend thousands of dollars in the run-up to CXC. Not that the student wasn't able to do the work, but they just wanted someone to sit with them to, make sure they're comfortable and in the right headspace. So, yeah, we want public service, we want public education. Let the government pay for the education. The government, what the poor people pay for their own education, they're wicked. They're too wicked. Okay, you get the public service education, it's substandard, and the wealthy people hire the private tutors, and their children excel, and the poor still stay down at the bottom. Yep. And then today I was reading on Facebook, people are complaining about, someone asked the question, what's the average cost to send a child to secondary school now? And people are talking about 5,000, 7,000 a term anyway. So yeah, it's expensive anyway, even for the poor people. Bear in mind, it's only 4,000 a term at MindFULL Education.
Yep. But no, I'm not talking about just that, but everything is free. Every single thing.
Free.
Education, free food, free healthcare, free. And it's like, it doesn't benefit the rich, because they don't use the system. The rich are not going to sit down in Mountain Free Hospital. The rich are not going to say, well, they don't have to send their children to the free thing. They would even pay for their children to go to like the convent or whatever if they didn't pass for it in the first place. So it's not like the poor, the rich really benefits from any of these systems. It's really for the nation as a whole, that collective to benefit as a whole. And this is something I've been saying for years. The free education in Trinidad and Tobago hurts the country more than anything else. I'm not saying that we should get rid of it, because I think we are way past it right now. But because of free education, we are forcing people who don't want that academics to have to do it.
Correct.
Right? When you look at school, like it concerns the CXC, right? The CSEC passes, I think. Our country, because of the thing being marked on a curve and for how much students do the exams, we perform probably worse in the Caribbean, because we have too much students who don't want to do the exams doing the exams. In places like Jamaica and I don't know, Sister Kika said have to pay for their exams, but the parents have to pay for the children's exams.
But let's see, you're 100% right on that, eh? But you're running. You finished?
But because they have to pay for the exam, only people who want to pass, only people who want to go to school do the exam and they excel. We need to move away from the academic and encourage children who are not inclined to it to go and learn trade and develop in your sports. Too much children that is be good at sports, and because SA coming around, the parents pull them out and put them in lessons. And then we lost a whole talented group of people because we want to just, everybody must do the same thing. Go and study to be a lawyer and a doctor and whatever. And if you can't make the, well, let's have something else in line there. No, like just let the people and them do what they're good at. Let them strive in their own ways. But like, oh my God, we hurt in our own country. We don't see it.
But Trini Mav, hype, MIC, NESC, PNM, mash up all of that. Wasn't it PNM who created all of that? PNM was the one. PNM could make a what you call those letters? What's the word for that? Like must and it.
You know what mash it up? people not attending, people not finishing.
But PNM champions those programs. Acronym, thank you. Acronym is the word. PNM is acronym boss. PNM could make an acronym. Oh gosh, they could make an acronym institution or service. Why this, that. There are so many things, and the PNM didn't mash them up. That's a lie. That is a lie. That's not true. You know how many people I know did YTEP get paid to go and learn something? You know how many people went to MIC? There are still people doing those things. They didn't mash it up. But Velez, you are right on the textbook business. That is a racket. And it won't be investigated because you need to look at the names of the people who write the textbooks. Then look at the names, look at those surnames and see if you see places where those surnames have some correlation. Inside, higher up inside the Ministry of Education and inside certain areas inside there. I'm not sure. But the really and truly textbook for a child from the age of 0 to probably Cape doesn't really need a textbook, especially with the internet. Everything you need to learn is on the internet there. The irony is, there are some schools now where the teachers come every day, print something from the office, and come and give the children anyway. So you buy a textbook and you're still getting paper handouts whole day every day. It is a racket. It is a racket, and then they update the edition by changing 5 words every 2 years and tell you need to buy the new edition, just in case you had a bigger brother and you thought you could have borrowed his book. Which edition is this? No. We aren't using the 2nd edition anymore. We are on the 3rd edition, and it has important changes that we need to get. We need those changes. So, sorry, you can't use that 2nd edition anymore. That book is obsolete. Little Miss Mediator says there needs to be basic level of education, that it should include finding the children's strengths. Agreed. You need the textbook. You don't need the teacher. That is 100% wrong, Zigos. You have it vice versa. You need the teacher. You don't need the textbook. Zigos, have you done teaching before, Zigos? You go give a student a textbook and come back in 2 hours and see what happens, and give them just a test and see what happens with the average student. Sir, I get passed off every time. Textbook should be in PDF form. Agreed. I did an entire BSc degree in UE and never bought one single book. I never bought a book in UE either. Egg pissed, Velez says. Correct. Nico, exactly. Teachers don't really use textbook when I was in school. Correct. Cutty Cut says a lot of great athletic abilities fostered in secondary schools, but there is a lot of indiscipline. I agree there. There is... Oh, my Instagram video stopped. Apologies over on Instagram. I agree there that there is often a kind of correlation between the athletic side and the indiscipline. But I actually think it's kind of linked to what Ronnie was talking about before. Because if you know secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago, by and large, if you are in the athletic run of things, they assume you're not very much in the academic and they release the discipline reins on you. I played football in school, and really and truly they allowed footballers a lot more latitude. So yes, there is indiscipline, but I think that indiscipline is kind of because the system treats them as, okay, these aren't the studious people. You don't have to worry about them going to class too much and all of that. Don't pay attention to those things. And then what happens oftentimes when you foster that indiscipline on the athletes inside of secondary school, you end up with these athletes trying to get a scholarship, or even if they do get a scholarship and they go away, they go to a university somewhere, and the university tells them, okay, you are on a scholarship, but you need to maintain a GPA average of whatever they see. And if you don't maintain the GPA average, you are kicked out of the scholarship program. And then these students who had 5-7 years of free and discipline in secondary school, nobody told me to do anything. What are they going to do now? So it doesn't work good like that. The only subject text that may need periodical updates is social studies. It have Google Now text for what, correct? Michelle texts are good for preschool to teach writing, numbers, and letters. My kid in upper 6 done tell me don't waste my money on books for her. She gets everything free. Good on your kid. Good on your kid. I did the same. Why am I buying a $300, $400 textbook? Nah. Mm-mm.
No, but Nathan, listen, when I say that we have athletes that don't take to the academic or whatever, I am thinking like, okay, why not build like a football academy school? So the main focus of the school would be like football or whatever sport, while they still have to do academic.
I believe no.
Academic is part of your life as growing into adulthood, but you may not need to do every single thing like in school where you have to pick 7 subjects or whatever. If it's 5 subjects we're focusing on and you build on those 5 subjects, because I mean really and truly when you need 5, but you're focusing on football because that is where you're good at and that's where you want to succeed and you want to go and play internationally or something like that. You know?
I agree. And here's the thing with that. Trinidad's education system is theoretically set up to do things like that. At least it was. You see, if you went, and this is why I liked the junior sex, senior sex system. The stigma on it, the stigma is still there when they change the name. That was irrelevant. I like that system because, okay, we found out that you aren't doing at a very high level on the academic side. We put you in a different kind of school where you have 3 years to see, do you still want to do this academic business? In those 3 years, you reach 14 years old, the 14 plus exam at the end of the junior set. And okay, you could go and work now. Or you could join something athletic. And we also had, I believe UTT had a sporting program at a point in time that basically did that. They are... probably if you go in a lot of the secondary schools right now, a whole batch of PE school teachers came out of that UTT sport program. And a lot of them were athletes in school. And they were athletes in school. They got a kind of scholarship to UTT and they did the sport program there and then they came back to do PE teaching in school. That makes sense. And I agree with those things. But the problem is many people have a problem with the stigma. So you see, if my child can learn as your child learns and they have to go to the Dunsey Head school where all they're doing is kicking ball whole day, because that's what is going to be said, people would have a problem with that. So I think the system we had with the junior sex, senior sex stuff was made to do that. When it had post-primary, it was made to do that. You filter out who is able to go on. You see this idea, and that's the UNC Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa with every child gets a place kind of nonsense. That's collectivism. That's more collectivism. To me, that doesn't make sense. If you are not able to do the work at that level, why put them at that level? It really doesn't make sense. Now in the workplace, I'm the only one. What's that you're saying there, Z Ghost? Let me see if I can. I had 3 textbooks for every course. Now in the workplace, I'm the only one who can apply the knowledge. Everyone else just has certificated and can do it. They got rid of junior sex to make people feel good, but it was counterproductive. I agree. Some people felt good in the moment. I'm not going at junior sex, but what was the actual outcome of that? Were the students benefited? Did the students benefit from that? And Zigos, I don't think it's necessarily the textbooks that did that, because many subjects I don't have the textbooks for. I got the information online, and all textbooks can be found online. All. It's just probably if they would be legal or not. Should I jump in? That one a bit too deep. I feel we'll leave that for tomorrow evening.
But Joe was asking me what will happen if they got hurt, right? And as you know, so that's that program, by the way. And you can go into a lot of different things after. You can do sports management. You could learn about like sports commentary. You could do sports therapy. You could do a lot of things. We limit sports to just playing it. But we have a lot of things. You have coaching. You have physiotherapy. And have so much other things that you can do in that arena. And you don't need to study every single thing in the secondary school system. You just need to have a passion in your sports arena, and you learn a few basic subjects. You learn to read, you learn to write, you learn to spell, you learn to count.
And I noticed about some of those things. I noticed about some of those things, Ronnie. For some people, the teenage years may be a bit more difficult for them, and maybe they could focus more on the sports, the activity, especially for young men. This is particularly on the male side. Sometimes the attention span, because of their upbringing, because of their surroundings, they just don't have it. And then some of these same people, because as I say, I'm a teacher, I teach privately mostly, a lot of private candidates, some of those same people come back to you after 25. After they failed everything in CXC, they beat up themselves, they thought they was done, they do some piece of work for a couple years, they pull through a little bit, but then they're trying to move up in the job sphere and recognize, oh gosh, I need this maths and English by. So they come and they hire a private tutor and they sit down with you and you explain simultaneous equations to them and they're like, oh, that is what it was? Really? I understand it now. Sometimes they might need a little time, some time to settle. Sports requires the brain to compete rapid calculations. Most academics can't do it. Partially true, yeah. But yeah, there are some people, the time. Some people just the time. Because there are realities of being young that make sitting in a classroom more difficult. For example, you see that sit down in a classroom all day, look at a board, focus on one person talking to you to learn. That's a female learning pattern. Males do not excel at that learning pattern. That's why males are struggling and behind females in every area in that kind of education. And then shockingly, you go to university, you go into the engineering faculty, and suddenly males boom. And engineering is not easy. So it's not that the males were dumb, it's just that you have a method that isn't ideal for them. And then if this person already had a struggling upbringing, you don't know what they had, what kind of treatment they had in the womb that may have affected their attention span. You don't know how much screen time they were given, if they were just given a screen to occupy them. So it's very difficult for them to focus. Their senses are overloaded constantly, so now for them to focus on a book, on a paper in class, it's just literally feeling like they're going crazy. You don't know. Sometimes that might be the case. And you see, I remember in the senior sec, something that happened in the senior comprehensive. I don't know how much of it they still do, but they gave some students basic proficiency. How many of you know that there's general proficiency, but there's also basic proficiency in CXC? If there still is.
Still, I think. But at least after a few years, they still had it.
So that was one of the solutions. Okay, you're struggling at this general level. You get the basic level. And then maybe in time, you reach 25, you're able to settle a bit more. You go and do it. That might be the ideal for some people, instead of forcing them to stay in school till they're 18 and frustrated. I'm not downgrading it, I'm saying they can focus on sports and basic academic till later. Downgrading what? Why are you downgrading sports? Sports requires the brain to compete most academic. Oh, I don't know if it's me or her you're talking to in that sense, but it's not downgrading sports. But there are things that require complicated brain functions that aren't active uses of the brain. So there are some people who could do it but aren't able to explain how they do it. So it's not something they do consciously. So yes, it does use complicated calculations, but it's not something that is actively done. So sometimes they don't know that they're doing it. Walking is a complicated calculation that we're figuring out. Nearly everything we do with our body is some kind of complicated calculation. Do you know how many muscles need to work for my fingers to do this? Yeah, they are complicated calculations, but these things aren't things that we think about. These are things that some people have intuitively. And because they have it intuitively, it's sometimes difficult for them to explain. It's like we could intuitively understand the meaning of words without sometimes knowing the definition of a word. So one of the things I regularly like to ask in a class, so my English classes when I start, and new students, define the word black. And you would see lots of people struggle to give a definition for the word black because they have it intuitively in their mind, but they cannot define it. What do you disagree with, Rasputin? I don't even see what I said there that could be disagreed with. That there are people who could intuitively do things and can't explain it. I don't understand how there's a disagreement there. But that's what goes on sometimes with sports. So sometimes you see it sometimes with dyslexic people, sometimes with autistic people. They could do some things that are marvelous, and sometimes they can't even explain how they do it. So there are some people with severe autism that could watch a bottle of random objects and tell you how much objects are in that bottle. They don't know how they do it, but their brain does the calculation.
I just want to point out, he goes like he's not listening to nothing. Because you literally, here's his comment. Basic level and everybody will laugh at you. Okay, so do the general and fail and everybody will laugh at you still. We just sat and talk about just doing things so people don't laugh at you. We changed the junior sec to secondary because people were laughing at people who passed for junior sec. That is not how it does go. Just because people laugh at you doesn't make whatever you're doing any less or any greater. It means you do what you could do and you excel in doing that. And it will carry you one step further to where you need to go. When I was in school, right, it had these guys in my, like, obviously the footballers and all of them, I did PE just because I wanted an extra subject, right? So I did PE with them. And when I was sitting down talking, because these people I would never talk to all of my life, and I was talking to them and stuff like that, and all of them was like, yeah, and Coach tell Mark when I get a 1 or Coach tell Mark when I get 2. Listen, I struggled. I didn't even do a SB or anything for PE. So, I got I think I got 2 or 3 or something like that. I didn't do the SB, but I did the practical and I did the exam. That was all that mattered. But they were so excited for the exam. They were like, yes. And the thing about it, when I did PE, the only reason I passed PE, because PE was biology. It was just a lesser version of biology. And I used a lot of what I learned from PE to help me pass bio because I did sciences. Because they just kind of break down the information to a lesser degree.
PE is like HSB kind of way.
It's not like they're unable to do the hard things, but probably it's just not because their mind's not there at the point in time, or because they're probably just in too much big words or whatever. They excel at the point of PE, and a lot of them went on, they passed the PE exam much higher than I did. You understand? And they were so happy about it. And you know something? Most of them would have written the basic maths or English. Most of them. And you know what? They passed the basic maths and English. So they had 3 subjects right there. Maths, English, and PE. Because at the point in time in our school, it wasn't how people viewed you. They did the basic. And they didn't even, nobody knew that they did the basic.
Wait. Zigos. Which prestige school you went to, sir? You think they don't? You think in prestige school it's just friendly competition? I could tell you didn't go. You didn't go. You think it's just friendly okay, Zigos. He's the same one that said if you're in sports you don't need academics. That is
I don't know any sports person who don't who don't have academics.
That is
Nobody.
foolish.
See?
That is
Messi has academics.
foolish. If you do sports, I knew a guy, close friend of mine, a little older than me, so this would have been like in the 2000s somewhere there, and really good at football, very skillful. He went away probably 4 times, 5 times, different trial there, this university, that university. Every time he went, they tell him, we'll take you in. You just need to raise your grades. Just raise your grades now, boy. Just raise your grade. Because it's a university that does the scholarship. Where are you going to play your sports? Nearly all junior level sports, the run up into the professional leagues, is school sports. Like, there aren't many sports where you could get in outside of a school in the first place. The best way to get into professional sports is through school.
Yep.
Messi and Ronaldo were to uni. What are you trying to say there?
I think he just went to uni. I don't know. I think he asking if they went to uni.
By the way, Messi was in La Masia, which is an academy that does not only teach football, it teaches academics too. At the age of 11, he went across there. They teach you the academics. They give you your passes inside there. Right there. They give it to you. All of those guys, regularly, by the time they finish, they have a bachelor's. Regularly.
But Zigo, if 100 guys are very good at football, right? Probably only 15 of them will make it into some European league or something like that. And we're talking about like exceptional 100 of them, and especially if they're outside of Europe.
I am willing to wager Zigos didn't go press out. Zigos, give me a profile. I'm willing to wager you didn't go press out, sir.
Well,
I'm willing to wager that.
Still very high. Just one. You see, so 1% of every good sportsman does get into a professional league. So you cannot forsake your academics just because you're really good. And you yourself was talking about if you get injured. So if you get injured, what happens to you then? And if you're not academically inclined, you do have no academics whatsoever, managers going to run amok with you. Like what Muhammad Ali said, he didn't want to give his manager a percentage. So he asked for, how much did he ask for again? It was like a real small amount. And that's all he wanted for his fight. He didn't want a percent. He wanted, it was like $100 from me. It was real small money. Right? That's what has happened when you don't take the academics too. You have to, because you have to say about yourself. You can't just say, well, I will hire a manager to deal with that for me because they will run game and you.
They will. And
millions of dollars.
You know, Ronnie, as we sometimes talk about, those group issues, the ethnic, racial group issues and stuff, regularly, you see this kind of thinking from Black and Caribbean athletes, and we don't need all that learning and ting and they reach to the higher level and they're robbed blind, and then they're surprised, oh no, how did I lose all my money like that? Well, and you didn't need to learn anything. Well, you learned nothing, so there are your consequences. And then you're surprised why some of these athletes, by the time they finish at 35, by the time they're 40, they're nearly poor again. They have to go on some dancing with the stars or find some other little something to try and scrape up some money somewhere. So if you're an athlete, this Zigos guy here seems like a troll. He isn't making any sense. But don't take him on. Don't think about that. You need your work done. Now, the thing is, as Ronnie was saying there, it makes sense that if you are specially skilled at sports, that you do focus more on that you do put effort into that. But it doesn't make sense that you attempt to train your body and then you leave your mind out of it. That's foolishness. You'd be a fool if you do that. In America, yes, college is important, but why can elect to the draft from high school or playing the minors? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And then look what happened to Bolt and I'm sitting here to school. Most go back to school too. Yes, they go back to school. These things are obvious. These things are obvious. You need learning. You see, I think a lot of people have the wrong idea about why you learn things. You don't learn things for the certification. I know that's the CXC lesson. The CXC lesson is you learn things to get CXC ones or a distinction, but you learn things to know about life. You want to know why this happens, why that happens, what's the reason for this, what's the reason for that, what am I supposed to do here, what I should do here, how should I act in this situation. That's what learning helps with. You know, there have been tests done that prove increases in IQ. Actually, people with higher IQs actually have a longer lifespan. And it's not because necessarily their insides are more healthy. It's because if you're smarter, you make better life decisions. Go look at some tests on IQ and see those differences. And then think whether you should hone your intelligence or if you should leave it to the wind. Would I go back to school if I have 100 million? You should if you want to keep your 100 million. You know, 100 million can be lost, you know. It's not that difficult to lose it. You know, I recognize one of the problems with poverty is it doesn't teach you how to deal with money. Poor people don't know what to do when they get money. Poor people have but many poor people have no idea what to do when they get money. So sometimes they get money and it's not even the indiscipline. It's not even like they overspend. They just have no idea. They didn't know that this is a tax. They didn't know that if they keep their money in this kind of account, that it drains their account. They didn't know that this is the investment account. They didn't know that that was a bad investment. They didn't know that if you give money to this person, they tax you on it. They didn't know that the gift limit is only X amount. They don't know these things. It's ignorance. They aren't accustomed to money. They don't know that, okay, maybe I should have a corporation here. I should open an LLC and put some in this LLC. Maybe I should open one. So if someone sues me, because if you have 100 million, don't be surprised if someone finds out you have 100 million and all of a sudden they get reasons to sue you. So you know, you separate this here and separate this here so you could file bankruptcy on this and protect that there. They don't know those things. Valetsi says, I believe in not mentally breaking up education into subjects. I could understand what you're saying, and that's what we attempt to do in Mindful Education with our more homeschool style teaching with the learning pods. That's our intention, but we still use subjects and we still teach the same things that the subjects would teach, but we don't necessarily call them the same things. So our math is basically more logic. We teach logic for the young people. Math is under logic. So that falls straight, and the English is in rhetoric. We teach rhetoric. So logic falls into rhetoric and building rhetoric using logic. So math actually combines with English, and you could actually have lessons that encompass more than one. So you learn how to open an LLC in school, in business school you do. Zigos, do you think Form 1 to 5 is the only school there is? That was actually the point that Ronnie was making, you know. The point that she was making was that especially if you are gifted at athletics, maybe that Form 1 to 5, Form 1 to 7 system, well, upper 6, may not be for you. But it's not saying that there should be no education. Maths is the devil's subject. Actually, it's God's subject. The entire universe. If you believe that God created the entire universe works perfectly in mathematics. So, it's God's subject. Zigos, I don't believe a word you say, Zigos. Nobody believes you. All right. Anybody has any further comments or questions before we dive out? Which business, where you got your MBA? Where you got your MBA, Zigos?
I don't even want to slander none of these business schools in Trinidad and Tobago because I don't know, probably are online. You know, during COVID, they was offering them online services and you can do whatever little. Oh gosh, Lordy. You see, he's slandering one of our locals.
Lockjack. And who was your lecturer there? Who was your lecturer, Zigos?
Big up Lockjack, boy.
Ismail, actually, wait, there is a guitar here actually, but my guitar isn't here. There's a guitar, but my guitar isn't here. That guitar isn't tuned and might be missing some strings and stuff. So, you know, some other time. Yes, I do white leather.
Yeah, you should give it back. I agree with you. Give it back.
And none of them at no point taught you.
All of them looking.
Okay.
All of them gonna look to school this man just like what? You missed the class. He did not teach you that.
All right, people. That's all I have for now. This was nice as usual. Thank you all for tuning into the Mindful Live. I'll see you guys again tomorrow for the next Mindful Live starting. You know, tomorrow is Tuesday. Feel I could make that 9, assistant? Tomorrow we starting 9. We starting 9 tomorrow. It is laid in the concrete and it will dry. Yeah, let's see after join. Let's see. The guy I was talking to on Instagram is actually a neighbor of mine that I harass about being my #1 fan. Valetzi might actually legit be the oldest fan. Was he the first one to buy a jersey? I think you may have been the first jersey sold in a Valetzi. If not the first, the second. One out of those. Yeah, bro. Appreciated. Very appreciated. You hanging around and liking the content. It really does help. Alright, people, as I said, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. The education from me, the information from Ronnie, the entertainment from Zigos. That's all I have for now. I will see you guys for the next one. Peace. Laters. I'm out. Bye.